Our story begins within the demon sect, now under siege by the Merm. The sect's soldiers fight desperately to hold the line, resisting the invaders' push toward the inner gates. Amid the chaos, the protagonist, Yum-yang, races toward the palace where the sect leader has taken refuge. As he runs, he reports to himself, or perhaps to anyone listening, that the Merm have sent over 10,000 fighters. Suddenly, a man notices him and freezes in surprise. It's Sandoyan. He strides toward Yum-yang, his expression tight with urgency. Sandoyan demands to know why Yum-yang is wandering unguarded in the middle of a battlefield, ordering him to follow at once. But Yum-yang shakes his head, insisting he is heading to the leader's palace. He explains that she stayed behind after ordering the others to flee. Sandojan's face darkens. He warns that the situation is critical. The defensive line won't last an hour. He urges Yum-yang to seek safety immediately. Yum-yang refuses to relent. He says he will come back, but first he needs to understand what the leader is planning. Seeing his determination, Sandojan exhales sharply and steps aside, relenting with a terse acknowledgement. Yum-yang sprints off, leaving Sandojan behind. When he finally reaches the palace doors, he calls out, asking if the leader is still inside. Silence answers him. His chest tightens. He raises his voice, nearly shouting now, declaring that he is at the door and begging her to open it. Then her voice responds, calm but firm, granting him permission to enter. His breath catches. He hadn't expected an answer at all. Hand trembling, he presses against the door, then hesitates. He wonders if she heard what he said earlier, the words that had spilled out in frustration, dangerously close to disrespect. Steeling himself, he shoves the door with all his strength. It groans open reluctantly, and he grunts at the effort, complaining about its weight. He mutters that they should have left at least one guard with her. Once inside, he doubles over, panting. The leader watches him, her body visibly weakened. Her voice is quiet but sharp as she remarks that his combat skill are still beneath even a third-rate fighter. Still catching his breath, Yum-yang manages a weak laugh, admitting that right now he's just glad no one saw him struggling with a damn door. Yura gives a faint nod, her piercing gaze locking onto Yum-yang. She observes that had any elders overheard his earlier disrespectful tone, he would have faced severe punishment, making it clear she had heard everything. Immediately chastened, Yum-yang drops into a deep bow of respect. In this moment, the sect leader's name is revealed to be Yura. With visible effort to maintain her regal bearing despite the poison's effects, Yura studies her visitor. Her voice carries both curiosity and exhaustion as she questions why the sect's weakest member has sought her out. Yum-yang deflects by demanding to know why she remains in the besieged palace. Beads of sweat glisten on Yura's forehead as she flatly states the obvious. The poison coursing through her veins has made escape impossible. Yum-yang's composure shatters. His hands clench into white-knuckled fists as he demands confirmation whether this was the work of the traitorous sect leader. That man's name, Han Mobek, hangs heavy in the air between them. He was the very man Yura had chosen as her husband, who then betrayed her by opening the sect gates to the Murum Union, now leading the defectors as their new master. Yura's regal mask slips momentarily, revealing profound sorrow as she recounts Han Mobek's cruel confession. He claimed to have endured years of suffering just to gain her trust and affection. The poison, he had told her with vicious satisfaction, would let her experience but a fraction of his pain. The revelation hits Yum-yang like a physical blow. His hand flies to cover his mouth, stifling a guttural sound of rage. Every muscle in his face contorts with barely contained fury. Observing his visceral reaction, Yura surprises herself by smiling faintly and remarking that he truly is an interesting person. But Yum-yang shakes his head sharply, insisting now isn't the time for such observations. The Yura he knows has always been the epitome of seriousness, confidence, and discipline. Yet, here at life's end, she finds reason to smile. His voice drops to an urgent whisper as he asks the critical question whether it's already too late to counteract the poison. Yura confirms with grim finality that the toxin has penetrated her energy core. While she could have resisted any other poison, this particular variant was engineered to bypass all her defenses. Yumyong begins to call her name, then falters. The word if spills from his lips repeatedly, like a broken incantation. Yura's patience evaporates. Her eyes flash dangerously as she warns that one more utterance of if will cost him his tongue and commands him to get to the point. Steeling himself, Yumyong finally voices his desperate question. If she had the chance to return to life, what would she do? The unexpected query leaves Yura momentarily speechless. Yumyong's chuckle carries dark amusement as he reminds her of his earlier claim that in his past life he'd saved the world. Yura responds with a disbelieving laugh that rings hollow, stating she can't begin to imagine someone like him as a world-saving hero. He waves this aside impatiently, insisting she just pretend it's true, and pressing her again about what she would do if such an opportunity existed. Her voice turns brittle as she questions why he torments her with false hope, saying that if this chance were real, he should be pursuing it for himself, rather than taunting her with it. Yumyong's expression hardens. He states with cold intensity that the first thing she should understand about him is his absolute intolerance for betrayal, and the second, that this is how he repays a debt she doesn't even remember. Yura's brow furrows in genuine confusion as she admits she has no recollection of any favor owed. A knowing smile touches Yumyong's lips as he tells her not to strain herself remembering. His mind drifts back to their first meeting years ago when he had been among the candidates vying to become her husband. Yura returns his smile, a flicker of hope crossing her face. She asks what he would do if she truly returned. He responds that even if she will not remember any of this, he now knows every traitor who infiltrated the sect and the Merm Union that dared attack them. He vows to wield his full power to annihilate every last one without exception. He asks if she has a final wish and promises to fulfill it. Yura's answer catches him off guard. She wants him to try seducing her. Yumyong staggers, visibly stunned. He insists he is certain he can stop Han Mobek from becoming the demon sect's leader, but becoming her husband, he admits, he is less sure of. He reminds her she once declared a relationship between them impossible, stating that love requires mutual desire. Since ascending as the demon sect's unchallenged leader, she has crushed every suitor. Han Mobek only rose to power, he adds, because he endured her ruthlessness. Yura shrugs and says he need not comply. Yumyong counters sharply, declaring he never called her request impossible. He closes the distance between them, leaving her flustered. Romantic feelings, he murmurs, often bloom when one cares for someone indifferent. With a sly smile, he concludes that since she asked, it will not be difficult at all. Yura blushes deeply, unable to conceal her embarrassment. Yumyong looks at her intently, observing aloud that her features are strikingly beautiful. He requests a single promise, her forgiveness, if he ever spoke harshly of her in the past. Dropping to his knees, he clasps her hands and pleads for her to disclose her weaknesses so he might exploit them upon returning to the past. Yura's expression shifts to visible annoyance. She warns him that any leak of their conversation will result in severe consequences for him. She emphasizes she will speak only once, and he must heed every word. After she reluctantly shares her vulnerabilities, Yumyong laughs, remarking that she must have been formidable in her prime. Yura sharply orders him to silence, addressing him by name and declaring their discussion concluded. The intruders have breached her palace. She offers him a merciful death, but he declines. Smiling faintly, he asserts his resolve to witness events unfold until the final moment. Guan Hien, leader of the Murmur Union, strides forward, stating he never expected to live long enough to witness the demon sect's downfall. Yumyong accuses him of arriving alongside a traitor. Guan Hien chuckles, gesturing toward Han Mobek. He proclaims Han Mobek's formal title, Sacred Heavenly Dragon, and reveals he endured humiliation for the sake of Janju. Yumyong scoffs at the title, deriding Han Mobek for reducing himself to the Murmur Union's pawn. He declares their sins must now be repaid. Yura, still glistening with sweat, jeers that her beloved husband has at last returned. Han Mobek responds tersely, insisting every action he took was for Janju. Yura responds coldly, declaring his actions were for the sake of a society bold enough to defy the heavens. The crowd around them stiffens, stunned into silence by her words. Yumyong registers that this is his first encounter with mention of such a group. Hanmo erupts into panic, yelling to the crowd not to fall for the witch's deceptions, a final attempt, he claims, to spread chaos before her end. Murmur soldiers echo his warnings, insisting demons cannot be trusted, even in their desperation. Han Mobek growls that fighting her one-on-one is pointless and demands they overwhelm her collectively. Yura fires back that even poisoned, she requires no aid to crush them all. Guan Hien sneers at her confidence, but his taunt falters as a raw, explosive energy bursts from Yura's form. She stands poised for battle. Murmur Union soldiers recoil, disbelief etched on their faces at her retained strength despite the poison. Guan Hien, sensing catastrophe, bellows for his forces to strike without hesitation. The clash begins, the demon sect's leader against the full might of the Murmur Union. When the chaos dims, Yumyong stirs awake from the unconsciousness that claimed him during the fray. Yura voices her relief, confessing she feared he had perished. He shudders at her worsening condition. But she presses on, stating she is grateful to have endured long enough for a final exchange. She reveals the Murmur forces retreated when she unleashed her self-destruction technique. Yumyong's tears fall silently. She notices and questions their cause. He admits his anguish is beyond bearing. Though her body is gouged and pierced by blades, she closes the distance between them and asks if he will now uphold his vow, to pursue her favor instead of Han Mobek's. Yumyong, still weeping, swears he will keep that promise, regardless of the price. Yura laughs softly, her expression easing at his words. Then her body gives out, collapsing. He lunges forward, catching her as sobs rack his frame. He mutters to himself that these are his final moments in this lifetime. His first life, he reflects, was not without merit. He saved humanity, earned the revered title, Guardian of Earth, and was rewarded by the celestial ruler with 3 boons, including 2 chances at revival. He had once planned to live without burdens, but now, after all that has unfolded, he pledges to dedicate this last life entirely to Yura. When he opens his eyes, his servant Joe Chill is positioned before him, holding a tray laden with food. He stiffens in shock. Joe Chill's youthful appearance confirms he has traveled years into the past. He observes silently as Joe Chill piles food onto the table. A disembodied voice resonates in his mind, clarifying his regression. He is 17 again, on the cusp of entering the Demon Sect Tower, where he will gain the notorious reputation as the carefree playboy of the demonic bird.